All right, this is something I have been seeing a lot of lately on social media. And frankly, this has been a discussion that a lot of people have had for years, ever since comic book films really started to ramp up and get created. I can't stop seeing this excuse everywhere you look. I don't care where you look, you will find it eventually, either in massive spurts and you're seeing it on every post, or just every once in a while. It does not matter, you will still see it. It's now getting to the point that when I see this being used as an argument, I immediately just pass it off as nonsense. It literally means nothing to me anymore. And that would be the argument of comic book accuracy. People throw this term around like it is something you do on a daily basis. What do you need to do on a daily basis? You wake up and you go to sleep. You brush your teeth. You eat breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever it may be. The comic book accuracy or they don't understand these characters argument is getting so played out that it's now losing its value and it really does not mean anything anymore. Before I rip into comic book accuracy and maybe anybody who religiously uses that as an argument, let me defend it a little bit here. Before comic book accuracy became a word or a term that is simply just filler nowadays, such as but, and the, comic book accuracy simply just means sticking true to the source material. You want to make a piece of media about a character, well, you gotta stick true to that character and you gotta put them on screen just the way they pop off in those comic book panels. There is a certain level of comic book accuracy that these characters do carry. Marvel, DC, and any other type of character or corporation that falls within this comic book genre, along with source material and comic book accuracy, comes a certain amount of expectations. Comic book accuracy is essentially sticking to the soul, if you will, of what the character is, being able to identify them as the particular character in film or any other adaptation of which you are stripping from comic books. And I understand there is a certain level of accuracy you need with these characters and to understand these characters, but the problem with this argument now is there is no true comic accurate version of these characters, because with comic books, unlike other things, there are so many different variations to tell you otherwise. There's one variation of a character that differs from that exact same character written and drawn by another person. There is no true canonized accuracy, no matter what anyone wants to tell you. Source material is different for something like a video game. For a video game, that is the only thing you have about that very particular world. You have to stay true to it, because if you don't, you stray away from the path, and now it's no longer the game you are trying to make. With comic books, it doesn't work like that, and you should be more than free to be able to explore the way you want. Now, a lot of the people who use this comic accuracy argument are usually the people whose profile pictures are of a particular character, maybe a favorite character of theirs, and immediately thinks that because they feature a profile picture of a specific DC character, that they know all things comic books, they are well versed in this world, and that creatives are not allowed to have a voice unless it falls within their comic book accuracy. Once again, the argument is completely ridiculous, because there is no true form of comic book accuracy. Batman and Superman have been written since the 30s, and other characters alike have been written for a long time, 40s, 50s, and 60s. And within these past 85 years, a lot of these characters have had remakes and makeovers. Whereas it is true that some of these characters stay very true to other variations, they still have very different things about them, and preferences about them have changed due to creators over time. Maybe this Batman does something that this Batman would never do. There are so many different variations of these characters I have read about over the years, and after reading comic books for so long, I still don't know what the canon answer to these characters are, because the whole point is that creators over time have been making handfuls of variations of these characters to basically tell a specific story and how they want their character to be featured. There is no right or wrong answer. Comic accuracy is essentially used as an argument by people who feel as if they cannot control the narrative. There is a certain expectation that is met with these characters, and if those exact expectations are not met within film or within TV, it gives them an excuse to use this comic book accuracy argument, which holds absolutely no weight at all. The only comic book accuracy you need to worry about is the specific comic book or books you're looking into to help you adapt your story. A lot of these people make it seem that if you're writing Superman, and let's just say you choose to write Superman like Rebirth Superman, but all of a sudden in your film, you're starting to bring in certain values and attributes that directly tie to how Superman was maybe written in Superman Earth 1. And now all of a sudden, this does not meet the expectations of these comic book accuracy warriors. And now it's not comic book accurate anymore because, once again, it didn't fit their expectations. It's not what they liked. And now they have a reason to use this deadweight term, comic book accuracy. I don't think a lot of these people really understand that this term also negates the fact that creative freedoms and choices are not allowed in this world. And newsflash for you, a lot of these variations of characters that a lot of us love were all created due to the creative nature of writers and artists. And with comic book accuracy BS, you would never be able to have some of these characters if these people were just allowed to go on social media and rip any creator by saying, not comic book accurate, you don't understand these characters, blah, blah, blah. It is absolutely okay to not like variations. There are variations of these characters I don't like, but that doesn't mean other people don't like them, because many people do like variations I don't like or you don't like. And that doesn't mean that we just all of a sudden stop specific people from creating. What's a dumb idea to guy number 1 isn't a dumb idea to guy number 8. Or what guy number 4 views as my choices for Green Lantern to be a little weird, guy number 32 thinks to himself, I actually really like that. The amount of creative restrictions we're putting on a group of people whose jobs are to literally have creative freedoms, because that's what's happened with these comic book characters over time, is absolutely ridiculous. And all of these Twitter influencers and any other social media influencer who thinks they know more about a comic book character than the guy to their right because they understand source material or comic book accuracy, get the hell out of here. I also don't think a lot of these comic book accuracy people realize that a lot of what happens in comic book on pages, I don't care if it was 30 years ago, 10 years ago, or even today, not everything works on screen. Some of it would look completely ridiculous. Then along with that just simply comes the hatred of change. It is true, a huge majority of comic book fans just do not like change. They like what they know, and they don't ever want to stray from that path. Big example of this is Zack Snyder's films. especially Batman vs. Superman. Not a lot of people like that movie because of what he chose to do with Superman, which is just a deconstruction of the character Superman while still keeping certain values that holds true to the Superman character and that is needed for his future in that world. Although not many people want deconstructions. They want the simple Superman who's gonna smile through everything and save the day with absolutely no consequences. These are the same comic accurate fan base who hate having Superman being identified to a god, but want Superman to solve everything in a godlike fashion and don't want him to have any type of consequences or falters ever. Once again, you're allowed to dislike that take. And if you dislike it, all the power to you. But we can't just immediately say that it's not comic accurate because there are so many variations in comic book form of which Zack Snyder's Superman is taken from. There is comic book accuracy there. And then people like to act like this Superman, Henry Cavill's Superman, a little bit darker version of Superman, is the only Superman we've ever seen on screen before. God forbid, we need a hopeful Superman. Meanwhile, there's hundreds of variations of him in comic books that carry that exact same profile for you. There are the Christopher Reeves movies, there's even Brandon Routh's movie, there's the CW show with Superman. There are so many different outlets for you to watch a hopeful Superman. This is not the only variation of Superman out there. This comic book accuracy, a lot of these people are so hell-bent over, it's everywhere. Everywhere you look, there's a comic book accurate character or interpretation of these characters. For example, let's say I make a Batman movie. And for this Batman movie, made in modern day, coming out in 2025, my Batman movie is going to be structured like Adam West Batman and the Batman comics of the 40s and 50s. So Batman's gonna be a little more lighthearted. There's gonna be some cringy, cheesy jokes. The action's gonna be slower and is mainly just gonna be filled of ridiculous punches with comic book bubbles saying pow and slam. All of a sudden, people hate this movie and describe it as not comic book accurate. Tyrell Myers does not understand these characters. Well, that simply is just not true. That is spreading misinformation because I do. It is comic book accurate. It is a version of Batman we've seen before, and we've even seen him before on TV like that. Although, let's take it up a notch. Let's step it up. Let's say they now say Tyrell Myers' Batman movie is not comic accurate today. Ah, there we go. Now it's a little more specific because now you're grasping at the era that our modern society is currently in. That one little change in wording could literally change a lot of people's arguments if they still choose to use comic book accuracy as an argument. But even still, it's not comic book accurate today because maybe in the general forms of media that we have through writing and TV and gaming, Batman is not depicted to be the way I would have made him, but it's still comic accurate because somewhere out there in history, Batman has been like that. I'll use another example. Now, there have been many comic book movies over the years that have not been received lightly or that have caused a lot of discourse. For example, Batman vs. Superman came out in 2016 and still to this day, people love talking about that movie because of the discussions it generates. Love it or hate it, it's still talked about today. In comic accuracy's terms, the question is, why the hell is Batman and Superman fighting one another? Are they not supposed to be friends? Especially from a generalized audience, they're gonna think to themselves, I don't really read comic books, but it's not comic accurate, right? Because they don't fight. Although there are many interpretations where these characters have fought over time. Now, maybe one of the biggest problems with this is that the first live action film we're ever seeing with Batman and Superman in it is titled Batman v Superman, whereas a lot of people's expectations and their source material comic accuracy would have had Batman and Superman or A World's Finest, those two prolific characters of history not fighting each other in their first ever on-screen appearance. But like I keep saying, these creatives have creative choices they have to make that will fit the world they are creating. For one moment, instead of sitting there saying, "What the hell is this? This isn't what my 16 comic books say that Batman and Superman have done in their history," how about you just come at it with a different perspective and realize, oh, this is just a new version. This is a different variation of these characters that we've gotten for 85 years. A lot of comic book accuracy is just personal bias. It's what a particular person likes, and when they don't get what they want, then they retaliate with comic book accuracy. They don't understand the characters. Well, if you understand the characters so much, how about you go out there and you make a movie for everyone to see? Well, I am wearing something new, but that is just because I had a few more things I wanted to say about this topic, a few other points I needed to make. For example, look at the MCU. Look at some of the serious regression some of these characters have had over the years, or how different their movie counterparts are from their comic book counterparts, or the majority of their comic book counterparts. I mean, one big example is the Hulk. I think what they did to him in these final films has been absolutely awful. Now, I certainly don't hate you if you do like it. I 100% don't agree with what they did with him, but I'm not about to tell you you're an idiot for enjoying it. But it seems as if Marvel can do this all the time with their characters and nobody bats an eye, but the minute DC tries something, the minute Superman's a little changed, the minute Batman is a little changed, it is game over. There is a hypocrisy, there is a double standard for whatever reason. I just think today we have so many people who love comic books and so many people who read comic books, and also some people who don't read comic books but want you to think that that is all they do. Some of these characters can become so personalized to us that what happens is we cling to a character, our favorite character, and we start to think to ourselves that if this was in my image, if I was this person, this is how this character has to be. There is no other way of telling this story, or I have the best version of this character. I think that what happens is our viewpoints become very limited, and we don't know how to branch out and to understand that there are different versions of these characters. To keep the cliche nature of comic books and these movies at bay, to keep them from becoming so generic and so typical, we do need minds of people who will change these characters or give us variations of these characters that will keep us interested and that will get us talking. We do need a lot of more creatives who understand if you want the generic, typical version of these characters, there are hundreds of different variations of them, but we need something fresh in film. We need things that haven't been seen today in other forms of media. We need new, and people need to start accepting that viewpoints will not follow their guidelines, and they need to open their minds to be more accepting of these things. I had to go on a rant about this because I am sick of seeing it so much. So many of these comic book movies come out, and within day one they are praising it like it's the best movie ever made, and then all of a sudden in 6 months they realize it's not comic book accurate enough to my liking. Blah, 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 doesn't understand these characters. It's just nonsense at this point. The minute you use comic book accuracy, you completely lose me, one ear out the other. Anyways, everyone, let me know in the comments below what you think of comic book accuracy. I feel like a lot of you don't actually like that argument as well. I've had some discourse and conversations with people about it where we're pretty much on the same page with the situation. But now I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm sure there are more points I could have thrown into this video that I'm just forgetting about right now. Maybe for another day, another video, another live stream, who knows, we'll see. Anyways, everyone, that's it for this one, and I'll talk to you all very soon.